Ancient engineers built vast, straight roads and perfect aqueducts without any modern technology. This is the story of ancient surveying, the hidden art behind history's most enduring structures. By the end, you will understand the precise methods that let them map continents with little more than sticks and shadows. How did they align a tunnel through a mountain from two opposite sides? And what secrets did they read in the stars to keep their roads perfectly straight for miles? Their world was one of remarkable accuracy, achieved through patience and profound observation. What forgotten skill from the past do you think we need to rediscover today? The true genius of ancient surveying lies not in complex machinery, but in the mastery of fundamental principles. These engineers worked with a profound understanding of geometry and astronomy, seeing the world as a vast, measurable canvas. Before a single stone was set for a Roman road or the foundation of an Egyptian pyramid was marked, the surveyors had already planned the entire project using these timeless sciences. They knew that the key to creating infrastructure that would last for centuries was not brute force, but precise and accurate measurement. This was true whether they were building military supply routes that could move legions quickly, digging irrigation canals to turn deserts into farmland, or aligning the colossal stones of a temple. Early civilizations like the Egyptians along the Nile and the Mesopotamians between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers developed the first specialized tools for this task. Among the most important were the Groma and simple sighting poles. The Groma was a clever device, essentially a cross mounted on a staff with plumb bobs hanging from each arm. By sighting along the strings, a surveyor could establish a perfectly straight line, or, even more crucially, a perfect right angle across a landscape. Sighting poles were then used to extend these lines over great distances, one visual marker at a time. Think of it like a giant, real-world version of connecting the dots, but with an incredible demand for precision. The simplicity of these tools is deceptive. In the hands of a skilled practitioner, they were capable of astonishing feats. Consider the Roman aqueducts, which carried water for dozens of miles across valleys and hills. Using nothing more than these basic instruments, Roman engineers could lay out a channel with a consistently gentle slope, sometimes dropping only a few feet over a mile. This steady gradient was absolutely vital to ensure a smooth, powerful flow of water from the mountain springs to the bustling cities. Achieving such a slight, consistent decline over such a vast and uneven terrain required not just tools, but an almost intuitive feel for the land itself. The precision they achieved is a powerful testament to their deep, observational knowledge of the environment and their remarkable ability to translate abstract mathematical concepts into tangible, enduring reality. By understanding these foundational tools and the principles behind them, we can begin to see the sophistication hidden within what might otherwise look like primitive methods. This sets the stage for an even closer look at the specific, brilliant techniques they employed to conquer distance and geography. The sky itself became their most trusted map. While simple tools like the Groma established lines on the ground, ancient surveyors looked upwards to anchor their entire world to the cosmos. They understood that the sun, moon, and stars followed predictable, unwavering paths, providing a fixed reference frame that the shifting landscape below could never offer. By carefully observing the heavens, they could determine true north and south, or precisely mark the east-west axis. This celestial alignment was the invisible backbone of their most ambitious projects. A Roman road, for instance, did not simply run straight because it was efficient. It ran straight because it was often aligned with the pole star or the sun's position at the summer solstice. This gave engineers a constant, unshakable direction to follow, whether they were navigating through dense forests or across rolling plains. The technique transformed the chaotic earth into a measured grid, all under the silent guidance of the sky. This connection to the cosmos went far beyond pure utility. For many ancient cultures, aligning a temple or a city with the stars was a sacred act, a way of weaving human creation into the divine order of the universe. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy that still astounds modern surveyors. To achieve this, they used a simple yet profoundly effective tool called a gnomon, which is essentially a vertical rod that casts a shadow. By meticulously tracking the path of the sun's shadow throughout the day, and especially on the equinoxes, they could trace perfect arcs and pinpoint true east and west. This was not just surveying, it was a form of cosmic timekeeping, a ritual that blended science, spirituality, and stone. Their work demonstrates a seamless partnership between earth and sky, where observation of the heavens directly shaped the foundations of human civilization. How did they then translate this celestial precision into conquering the most formidable obstacles on the ground, like piercing directly through a mountain? Geometry gave these surveyors the power to measure what they could not touch. When a river was too wide to cross or a mountain too steep to climb, they turned to the pure logic of triangles. A principle as fundamental as the Pythagorean theorem, known to cultures long before the Greeks gave it a name, allowed them to calculate distances indirectly. This method, called triangulation, was their key to unlocking the landscape. By measuring a baseline along accessible ground and then sighting the distant point from each end of that line, they could form a triangle. Knowing one side and two angles, the entire shape and its dimensions were revealed to them through calculation. They could find the width of a raging river without getting their feet wet, or determine the height of a cliff from the safety of the valley floor. This was not magic, it was mathematics made manifest in the real world. The tools for this were elegantly simple. Surveyors used long ropes, often made of stretched animal hide to minimize sag, with knots tied at precise intervals. This knotted rope, or surveyor's chain, was a portable unit of measurement and a geometric instrument in one. Stretched taut between stakes, it could measure distance. Arranged in a 3-4-5 triangle, the knotted segments automatically created a perfect right angle, a principle understood for millennia. This is exactly how the builders of the Egyptian pyramids likely established the square bases for those colossal structures, aligning them to the cardinal directions with breathtaking accuracy. The rope was their calculator, and the knots were its memory. Another powerful concept was that of similar triangles. By comparing the length of a shadow cast by a staff of known height to the immense shadow of, say, a pyramid, they could calculate the pyramid's height directly. Or, using a simple sighting instrument, they could step back a known distance, measure the angle to the top of a wall, and use the properties of identical triangular proportions to find its elevation. This geometric reasoning enabled the creation of infrastructure in the world's most demanding environments. The Inca road system, for example, winds through the brutal peaks and deep valleys of the Andes. Its builders used these precise geometric calculations to determine the optimal, stable gradients for their stone stairways and causeways, ensuring safe passage across impossible terrain. This intellectual rigor reveals that ancient precision was born not from tools but from thought. The true instrument was the human mind, capable of seeing the invisible lines of geometry etched across the natural world. They transformed landscape into a diagram, solving it one triangle at a time. But how did they apply this brilliant logic to their most daring challenge, carving a path directly through solid rock? This simple cross of wood and string became the engine of Roman order. The Groma was the tool that turned the vast, untamed landscapes of an empire into a measured grid of civilization. Picture a surveyor standing on a hilltop setting up his staff. From the ends of a horizontal cross, 4 weighted plumb bobs hang perfectly still. By sighting across the pairs of strings, he could align one set to mark a straight line forward, the main road or the decumanus. Then, by turning his view to the other pair of strings, he instantly established a line perfectly perpendicular to the first. This was the genius of the Groma, its ability to create a flawless right angle with nothing more than gravity and a keen eye. That perfect 90-degree intersection was the fundamental building block for everything the Romans built. It allowed them to lay out entire military camps in a matter of hours, with streets and tents arranged in a predictable, defensible pattern. It was used to divide conquered territories into neat, taxable agricultural plots for new settlers, and most visibly, it gave rise to the characteristic Roman city plan, a chessboard of straight streets centered on 2 main axes. The Decumanus Maximus, the primary east-west thoroughfare, and the Cardo Maximus, running north-south, were almost certainly laid out with the Groma, their intersection defining the city's heart for all time. The tool's design was so effective and reliable that it saw continuous use for centuries, from the muddy fields of Britain to the arid plains of North Africa. It required no complex metal parts, just careful craftsmanship and a deep understanding of practical geometry. In the hands of a Roman engineer, this humble instrument did more than just measure land. It imposed a vision of logic and stability upon the world. It was the first step in transforming wilderness into a landscape of roads, cities, and farms, proving that true precision often lies in elegant simplicity. So how did they use this foundational grid to conquer the most dramatic geographic challenges, like spanning a deep valley with an aqueduct that needed a perfect, gentle slope? That perfect grid laid out with the Groma now faced its ultimate test, the gentle, unbroken slope of an aqueduct. To move water across dozens of miles, Roman engineers needed a channel that fell at a nearly imperceptible rate, sometimes just 1 foot for every mile of travel. A slope too steep would scour the channel walls with destructive force, while one too shallow would let the water stagnate and fail to flow at all. Their solution was a masterpiece of practical physics, a tool called the Corobates. Imagine a wooden bench as long as 2 men with a precise channel carved along its top. This trough was filled with water, and because the surface of water always finds its own level, it created a perfect horizontal reference line. Surveyors would sight along the top of the water in the channel, or sometimes along lines etched on the frame that were aligned with the water's surface. By doing this, they could mark 2 points on the landscape that were at exactly the same height, even if the ground between them rose and fell. They would then move the Corobates forward, setting a new point slightly lower than the last, slowly and meticulously stepping the grade down across the countryside. This painstaking process created a series of elevation benchmarks, a dotted line of perfect gradients that stonemasons would follow to build their arches and lay their channels. The Corobates was so sensitive that some accounts describe plumb lines hanging from its frame to check for any tilt, a backup system to ensure absolute accuracy against the true horizontal. This was not guesswork, it was a systematic, repeatable method that turned the subtle force of gravity into a measurable, buildable path. The result was an aqueduct like the Pont du Gard in France, which carries its channel on a relentless, gentle descent for over 30 miles, a monument not just to stone, but to the patient accumulation of thousands of tiny, perfect measurements. How did this same fundamental principle of seeking level apply when the terrain itself was the enemy, and the only path was straight through a mountain's heart? Even the most formidable barrier could be measured before a single path was cut. When a distant mountain peak or an inaccessible river bend needed to be mapped, ancient surveyors turned to the power of angles. Their method was triangulation, a brilliant application of geometry that allowed them to calculate the unreachable. It began by carefully measuring a straight line on level, accessible ground. This was their baseline, the one known side of a vast, invisible triangle. From each end of this line, they would cite a prominent, distant feature, perhaps a cliff face marking a proposed tunnel entrance or a far shore for a future bridge. By measuring the two angles formed between their baseline and the lines of sight to the target, they had all the information needed. The principles of trigonometry, understood in practical terms long before the formal name existed, then revealed the exact distance to that far-off point. The primary tool for this precise angle measurement was the Dioptra. This sophisticated instrument functioned like an early theodolite, featuring a sighting tube or a metal disc marked in degrees that could be rotated on a stand. By peering through the sight and aligning it with a target, a surveyor could read the angle with remarkable accuracy. This was not about guessing, it was about gathering cold, hard data from a safe distance. The planning of a Roman viaduct, for instance, relied entirely on this process. Before the first foundation stone was set in a riverbed, surveyors used triangulation from the valley slopes to determine the exact positions for the bridge's piers. This ensured that the massive stone arches would meet perfectly in the middle, a necessity when building from both sides of a wide chasm. This ability to measure the world without physically traversing every inch of it was a monumental leap in efficiency. It saved immense amounts of time, labor, and resources, allowing for projects that would otherwise be too risky or complex to even attempt. The underlying logic of forming triangles from known points to discover unknown ones is so fundamental that it remains the bedrock of modern land surveying and even global positioning systems. The ancient surveyors, with their Dioptra and their geometric insight, established a way of seeing the world that we still use today, proving that the most enduring solutions are often rooted in clear, logical thought. The Dioptra was the master key for unlocking the most complex geometric puzzles of the ancient world. This single instrument, a sophisticated combination of a sighting tube and a graduated circular plate, allowed engineers to measure both horizontal and vertical angles with a degree of precision that feels almost modern. It was their all-in-one surveying solution, a theodolite born 2,000 years before its time. By peering through the sight and rotating the disc, a surveyor could lock onto any target, whether it was a stake on a distant hill or a star in the night sky, and read its exact angular position. This versatility made the Dioptra indispensable for projects where a simple straight line was not enough. It could set the precise gradient for an aqueduct channel as it snaked across rolling hills, and it could ensure that the massive stone blocks of a temple were aligned not just with the cardinal directions, but with celestial events like the solstice sunrise. The true test of its power, however, came when the only path forward was through solid rock. The Eupalinos tunnel on the Greek island of Samos stands as a timeless monument to this tool's accuracy. Dug in the 6th century before the Common Era, this tunnel was an underground aqueduct, and the most astonishing part is that it was dug by two teams starting from opposite sides of a mountain. Each crew, guided by Dioptra measurements from the surface, carved their way through the earth. When they met in the middle, the two tunnels were almost perfectly aligned, a miscalculation of only a few feet over more than half a mile of darkness. This was not luck, it was the result of meticulous angular measurement and geometric calculation, all enabled by the Dioptra. Over centuries, the instrument itself was refined, its graduated scales becoming finer and its adjustments more delicate, representing a continuous thread of technological progress. The Dioptra was more than just a tool, It was the embodiment of ancient intellectual ambition, a mechanical mind that could see the straight path through the curved chaos of the natural world. The sheer scale of the Roman road network is almost beyond comprehension, 250,000 miles of engineered pathways binding an empire together. Yet the true marvel lies not in their length, but in their unwavering straightness, defying hills and valleys for mile after mile. This was not an artistic choice, it was a deliberate application of the surveyor's art, a process that began long before the first layer of stone was set. Teams of scouts and planners would first identify the most direct and stable route, drawing on generations of accumulated knowledge about the land. Once the general path was chosen, the surveyors moved in with their Gromas, transforming the theoretical line into a physical reality on the ground. They established the road's center line with unerring accuracy, then used the Groma's perfect right angles to mark out the consistent width of the roadbed, creating a standardized corridor through the wilderness. But a straight line is useless if it is a roller coaster. The Romans understood that a road must be as level as possible for efficient travel and proper drainage. Using their leveling instruments, they meticulously stepped the road down in a gentle, consistent gradient, ensuring that water would run off the surface and not turn the path into a muddy stream. Many of these roads were built on raised embankments called agars. This elevated design did more than just provide a stable foundation. It made the road a visible statement of Roman power, a dry, fast ribbon across a wet landscape. The legendary Appian Way, begun in the 4th century before the Common Era, is the ultimate case study. Its stone-paved surface, laid with exacting precision over its original surveyed alignment, allowed Roman legions to march at incredible speeds and enabled trade to flow unimpeded for hundreds of years. The road's legendary durability was no accident. It was the result of a sophisticated, layered construction technique, with each stratum of stone, gravel, and sand carefully selected and compacted to bear immense weight and resist weathering. This meticulous attention to every detail, from the initial survey to the final paving stone, created more than just a road. It created a permanent artery of civilization. How did they manage to transfer this incredible precision across an ocean of time, leaving a legacy that would guide nations yet to be born? A shared language of measurement was the silent partner to every ancient surveying tool. Without it, the perfect lines of a Groma or the precise angles of a Dioptra would have been meaningless, lost in a chaos of conflicting scales. This is why every great civilization developed its own standardized units, creating a common tongue for builders separated by vast distances. The Roman foot, the Egyptian cubit, the Greek fathom, each of these measures provided a consistent rule that could be replicated from one project to the next and from one generation to another. These units were profoundly human in their origin. The Roman foot was quite literally based on the average length of a man's foot, while the Egyptian royal cubit was derived from the length of the forearm from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger. This was practical genius. It meant that any surveyor could, in a pinch, use his own body to approximate a measurement, ensuring that the system was always accessible, even in the most remote locations. But for official work, these standards were meticulously preserved in stone or bronze, master copies kept in temples or government buildings to which all other measuring rods were compared. This unwavering consistency was the key to collaborative engineering on a massive scale. Consider the construction of the Great Wall of China. Work crews stationed across hundreds of miles of mountainous terrain, all built to the same specifications because they used the same linear measure. A section of wall built by one team would fit perfectly with the section from another, because both were working from the same invisible blueprint defined by a shared unit. The same principle applied to the vast network of canals in Mesopotamia. Teams digging from opposite directions toward the center of a project knew exactly when they would meet because the distance was measured in a common standard. This standardization also transformed logistics. Ancient engineers could calculate with stunning accuracy how much stone would be needed for a pyramid's course, how many bricks for a city wall, or how much labor was required to move a certain volume of earth. Their records, etched in clay or written on papyrus, reveal a sophisticated understanding of quantities and costs, all made possible by a reliable system of measure. The persistence of units like the Roman foot, which influenced measurement systems for centuries after the empire's decline, is a powerful testament to their intuitive design and rugged utility. It underscores a profound truth about these vast projects. Their legendary accuracy was not just a product of skilled individuals, but of a seamlessly coordinated system where everyone spoke the same numerical language. The rhythm of the stars dictated the tempo of construction. Ancient surveyors understood that their work was part of a larger cycle, and they planned their grandest projects around the reliable clockwork of the heavens. They did not simply fight against the seasons, they partnered with them, using astronomical calendars to choose the most opportune moments for their critical tasks. A survey begun in the dry season, for example, offered clear skies for celestial sightings and firm, stable ground for placing their markers. This was practical wisdom born from long observation, a way to minimize errors and delays before a project even began. But their use of the sky went far deeper than mere scheduling. For cultures like the Egyptians, the alignment of a temple was a sacred event timed to a specific day. The great temple complex at Karnak was engineered so that on the summer solstice, the rising sun would pierce the entire length of its darkened hall, illuminating the inner sanctuary in a blaze of light. This breathtaking effect was not an accident. It was the culmination of precise astronomical knowledge and surveying skill, a feat that required understanding the sun's shifting path throughout the year and then translating that knowledge into stone with absolute accuracy. The surveyors who laid out the foundation were not just builders, they were timekeepers, weaving a specific celestial moment directly into the architecture. This integration of astronomy and surveying created infrastructure that was both physically sound and culturally profound. The structures were anchored not just to the Earth, but to the cosmos itself, their alignment serving as a perpetual calendar and a link to the divine. Observing the stars also allowed these engineers to anticipate the challenges ahead. By tracking constellations associated with seasonal rains or winds, they could predict periods of flooding or storms, allowing them to plan their earthworks and material transport accordingly. This holistic view transformed surveying from a mere technical discipline into a form of applied wisdom. It was an acknowledgement that human creation, to be truly enduring, must move in harmony with the natural world. The legacy of this seasonal timing is a lesson in resilience, showing us that the most precise and meaningful structures are those built with an understanding of the world's greater rhythms. These diagrams on parchment and clay were the ancient world's blueprints. Before a single stone was laid for a new road or the course of an aqueduct was dug, surveyors translated their meticulous field measurements into visual plans. These were not maps in the modern sense with precise topography, but rather functional diagrams filled with practical information. They used simple symbols to represent rivers, mountains, and forests, and annotated these features with crucial details like distances between points, changes in elevation, and the locations of key landmarks. This visual language allowed an engineer in Rome to understand the challenges of a project in distant Gaul, turning a list of numbers into a clear picture of the task ahead. The Romans excelled at this practical form of cartography with documents known as Itineraria. Think of these as the ancient equivalent of a road trip itinerary combined with a schematic diagram. An itinerarium would list the main stopping points along a route, the distances between them in Roman miles, and important turns or features. For the teams building the vast road network, this was an essential guide. It told them exactly how far to push the straight line before a necessary bend, and where to expect the next river crossing or mountain pass. This systematic recording transformed the landscape from an unknown wilderness into a series of manageable, measured segments. One of the most fascinating surviving examples is the Putinga table, a medieval copy of a Roman map from late antiquity. It is not geographically accurate in the way we expect, instead compressing the entire Roman world into a long, scroll-like diagram. Roads are depicted as straight lines, cities as small drawings of buildings, and distances are carefully marked. Its purpose was not to show the true shape of the land, but to provide a functional overview of the empire's travel routes, a master logistics chart for military commanders and imperial officials. This ability to visualize an entire project on a sheet of parchment or a clay tablet was a cognitive leap. It meant that complex decisions about the placement of a bridge or the path of a canal could be made away from the site based on reliable data. These ancient mapping practices, born from the need to build and administer, established the foundational principles of scale, symbol, and annotation that would evolve into the science of cartography. They proved that a simple, well-organized diagram can be as powerful as the most detailed modern map when it comes to turning a grand vision into built reality. The land itself was the ultimate teacher, demanding a unique response from every surveyor who faced it. A method that worked perfectly on the flat, open plains of Egypt would be useless in the jagged peaks of the Andes. This constant negotiation with geography forced ancient engineers to become masters of adaptation, developing a whole toolkit of specialized strategies. In vast, level deserts, they could rely on direct sighting, using the Groma to extend perfectly straight lines to the horizon with little obstruction. But when the ground began to rise and fall, their approach had to become more fluid. A straight line up a steep hill was impractical for a road, so they introduced the zigzag or the switchback. This clever design reduced the gradient to a manageable slope, allowing both people and pack animals to traverse what would otherwise be an impassable wall of earth and stone. The Inca road system is the definitive example of this terrain-sensitive genius. Winding through the brutal verticality of the Andes, their roads do not fight the mountains, they dance with them. They incorporate stone stairways for sheer ascents, and pathways are carefully terraced into slopes to prevent erosion. The Inca used local materials, fitting stones together so precisely that their structures have withstood centuries of earthquakes, a testament to building in harmony with the land rather than against it. Beyond the visible path, surveyors had to read the soil itself. Before breaking ground for a foundation or an aqueduct channel, they assessed the stability of the earth, avoiding loose, sandy ground that could shift and seeking out solid bedrock. The location of fresh water sources was a primary factor in routing a road or placing a settlement, ensuring the community and the workers who built it could thrive. This was not just engineering, it was a form of deep ecological wisdom. They turned every challenge into an opportunity for innovation, proving that the most enduring infrastructure is that which listens to the whispers of the landscape. This ancient flexibility offers a powerful lesson for our own time, reminding us that true sustainability begins with a respectful and intelligent response to the world we are given. Behind every perfectly laid stone was a hidden world of mathematical thought. The tools were simple, but the minds wielding them were not. Ancient surveyors worked with a deep understanding of algebra and geometry, using these abstract sciences to solve concrete problems of distance, volume, and stability. Their methods were built on a foundation of geometric proofs, logical sequences that allowed them to verify their work with absolute certainty. Before construction began, they could prove that a planned foundation was perfectly square or that the slope of a proposed ramp was both buildable and functional. This rigorous checking process was their quality control, a way to catch errors on parchment before they became costly mistakes in stone. The Greeks elevated this principle to an art form, designing their temples according to sacred geometric ratios. The Parthenon is the ultimate example, its proportions governed by the golden ratio. This specific mathematical relationship, found throughout nature, was believed to create a visual harmony that was pleasing to both the eye and the spirit. But the application went even further. Look closely at the Parthenon's columns and you will notice they are not perfectly straight. Each one swells slightly in the middle and leans inward at a minute angle. This subtle curvature was a deliberate mathematical correction for an optical illusion, a calculated design to make the temple appear perfectly straight and robust from a distance. Here, mathematics served not just structure but human perception itself. Another cornerstone of their work was the constant pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. While they may not have calculated it to the billions of digits we know today, they possessed remarkably accurate approximations. This knowledge was essential for building the vast circular amphitheaters that dotted the Roman world. To lay out the foundation for the Colosseum, surveyors would have fixed a central point and used a long rope, a giant compass, to scribe the perfect circles and concentric rings that defined the structure. Calculating the amount of stone needed for each tier of seating required using pi to find areas and volumes, turning abstract math into precise logistics and resource management. How did they manage the immense task of dividing vast, newly acquired territories into farm plots or calculating taxes for an entire city? They developed sophisticated algorithms for calculating area. Using geometric formulas for rectangles, triangles, and trapezoids, a surveyor could accurately determine the size of any parcel of land, no matter how irregular its shape. This was vital for the Roman system of centuriation, the division of land into square grids for new settlers, and it was the bedrock of ancient taxation, ensuring assessments were fair and consistent. This mathematical knowledge was a closely guarded professional secret, passed down not through widespread textbooks, but through oral tradition and long apprenticeships. A master would teach his student the proofs, the formulas, and the tricks of the trade, ensuring that this powerful, practical wisdom was preserved and refined across generations. Their achievements stand as a powerful reminder that precision is not solely a product of advanced tools, but of advanced thought. The true instrument was the human mind, capable of seeing the elegant rules of mathematics written into the chaos of the world and using them to build a legacy that has endured for millennia. This deep mathematical knowledge could not be found in any library. It was carried in the minds and hands of masters. The precision of ancient infrastructure depended entirely on a living chain of learning, a system of apprenticeship that passed skills from one generation to the next through years of shared experience. A young novice would not simply be handed a dioptra and told to measure an angle. He would first spend countless hours observing his master, learning how to steady the instrument on uneven ground, how to account for the slight sag of a measuring rope on a hot day, and how to read the subtle signs in the landscape that foretold stable bedrock or a hidden spring. This was an education built on watchful silence and gradual trust, where the unwritten rules of the craft were absorbed as much as they were taught. The student learned that surveying was more than a technical skill, it was a responsibility. In shaping roads and canals, they were permanently altering the world for generations to come, an act that carried profound ethical weight. This careful mentorship ensured that invaluable techniques, like aligning a temple with the winter solstice sunrise or adjusting a road's drainage for the rainy season, were not lost but were instead refined and improved with each passing era. In some cultures, this responsibility became a family legacy. In ancient China, surveying was often a hereditary profession, with fathers teaching sons from a young age. These families became the custodians of specialized knowledge, maintaining detailed private records of successful methods, project logs, and observations of celestial patterns. This created an unbroken lineage of expertise, where each generation could build directly upon the accumulated wisdom of the last, leading to incremental but powerful advances in both accuracy and efficiency. The longevity of structures like the Grand Canal is a direct result of this continuous, refined knowledge transfer. The system highlights a timeless truth that the highest standards of engineering are not achieved through tools alone, but are sustained through the patient, dedicated act of passing wisdom from one skilled hand to another. The stones themselves seem to whisper of a higher purpose. For ancient surveyors, the act of measuring the land was never just a technical task. It was a sacred dialogue between the human and the divine. Their precise alignments were often prayers set in stone, designed to harmonize human creation with the cosmic order. This deep spiritual motivation is what drove them to achieve an accuracy that sometimes surpasses mere practical need. In Egypt, the pyramid was not merely a tomb, it was a machine for resurrection, a ramp designed to launch the soul of the pharaoh toward the eternal stars. To serve this celestial journey, its sides had to be perfectly aligned with the four cardinal directions, a feat requiring surveyors to use the circumpolar stars to find true north with breathtaking precision. This was engineering in service of eternity, where a fractional error in alignment was not a simple miscalculation, but a potential disruption of a sacred passage. Across the ocean, the builders of Teotihuacan laid out their magnificent city as a literal map of the cosmos. The central avenue of the dead does not run due north-south by chance. It was deliberately angled to point toward the setting of the Pleiades star cluster on a specific night, a date deeply woven into their mythic calendar. The Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon were positioned to create specific shadow plays during the equinoxes, turning the entire urban landscape into a giant astronomical observatory and a stage for ritual. Every measured line, every perfectly squared plaza, reinforced the belief that the city was the place where time began, the axis of the world. This fusion of faith and function provided a powerful, unifying motivation. The surveyor working under the blazing sun was not just laying out a foundation. He was participating in the recreation of the universe itself, ensuring that the community remained in sync with the gods and the cycles of nature. His work carried a weight far beyond the physical, infusing the pragmatic science of measurement with a profound sense of meaning and responsibility. How did this sacred geometry translate into the everyday lives of ordinary people, shaping the very cities they called home? The Aqua Marcia did more than carry water, it carried the ambition of an entire city. Stretching for over 50 miles from the mountains to the heart of Rome, this aqueduct represents the absolute pinnacle of ancient surveying precision. Its channel required a drop so gentle it is almost unimaginable, losing only a few feet in elevation for every mile the water traveled. To achieve this, surveyors first had to map an invisible path through the air, a perfectly declining line that would guide the masons and engineers across every type of terrain imaginable. They used their leveling instruments like the Corobates to establish a chain of elevation benchmarks. Each marker was a promise that the water would flow, not rush or stall, from the source to the destination. When this ideal path met a hill, the solution was not to go around but to go straight through. Teams would begin digging from both sides of the obstacle, guided by surface measurements that ensured their tunnels would meet deep within the earth. When the route crossed a wide valley, they constructed soaring arcades of stone arches, each pier founded at a height calculated to maintain the channel's unbreakable gradient. This was not brute force engineering, it was a delicate dance with the landscape, led by the surveyor's meticulous data. The design also showcased a profound foresight. Regular maintenance shafts were placed along the entire length, allowing workers to descend and clear blockages without disrupting the flow. Settlement tanks were built at strategic points where the water would slow just enough for sand and silt to fall out of suspension, protecting the channel from buildup and ensuring the water arriving in Rome was remarkably clean. The Aqua Marcia and aqueducts like it operated for centuries with remarkably little need for major repair. Their longevity was not an accident. It was the direct result of that initial, painstaking survey, a testament to engineers who could envision a thread of water half a century long and plot its course with unerring accuracy. That same geometric logic used to plot a tunnel through a Greek mountain now guides satellites in orbit. The legacy of ancient surveying is not confined to history books. It is woven directly into the fabric of our modern world. The foundational principles they established are the very bedrock of contemporary engineering. Take the simple, brilliant concept of triangulation, the method of forming triangles from known points to locate an unknown one is the mathematical engine behind the global positioning system. Instead of using a baseline measured with a knotted rope, GPS uses the precise positions of satellites as its fixed points. Your phone or car receiver then calculates its own location by measuring the time it takes for signals to travel from those satellites, effectively performing a high-speed, global version of the same geometric operation that Roman surveyors used to map a valley. This is not a vague inspiration, it is a direct technological evolution of an ancient idea. Modern tools also carry the DNA of their predecessors. The optical level used on every construction site today, with its telescope and spirit level, is a direct descendant of the Corobates. The fundamental goal remains identical: to establish a true horizontal line. The theodolite, the essential instrument for measuring angles, is the conceptual heir to the Dioptra, refined over 2 millennia but operating on the same core principle. Even the ancient practice of using water to find level is alive and well in modern hydraulic engineering, where the behavior of fluids is still harnessed to control massive structures like dams and locks. This continuity is why modern surveyors still study historical methods, not as a curiosity, but to understand the timeless concepts that underpin their entire profession. Our most ambitious modern projects stand on these ancient shoulders. The Channel Tunnel connecting England and France required teams to drill from both coasts and meet with pinpoint accuracy deep beneath the seafloor, a direct echo of the Upalinos Tunnel but on a vastly larger scale. The construction of high-speed rail networks, where even a millimeter of misalignment over long distances can cause significant issues, relies on the same unwavering commitment to straight lines and gentle, controlled gradients that defined Roman roads. The ancient insistence on standardized units has evolved into today's rigorous international standards, ensuring that a component manufactured in one country will fit perfectly with another on the other side of the world. This unbroken thread of ingenuity reminds us that while our tools have grown more powerful, the core challenges of measuring our world and building within it remain remarkably consistent. The drive for accuracy is a timeless value, and the wisdom of the past is not obsolete but a permanent foundation for the future. The precision of the pyramids sometimes feels impossible, leading to whispers of lost technologies or otherworldly guidance. Yet these myths, while captivating, obscure a far more compelling truth. Every achievement was grounded in the careful application of observable science and generations of refined practice. The idea that these builders required alien intervention, for example, dismisses the sophisticated understanding of mathematics and physics they clearly possessed. We see the evidence in their own records and tools, not in speculative fiction. Their genius was human, honed through diligent observation and a relentless pursuit of accuracy. Even the most celebrated structures were not flawless. Minor deviations exist in the Great Pyramid's base, a testament to the immense challenge of the work. These were not failures, but realities of any large-scale project. The true skill of the surveyors is revealed in how they managed these imperfections, making subtle, iterative adjustments during construction to maintain overall integrity. The quest was not for unattainable perfection, but for a functional and enduring precision. By letting go of the supernatural explanations, we can fully appreciate the profound intellect and resourcefulness of these early engineers. They solved monumental problems with the knowledge and tools available to them, offering us a powerful lesson. Real innovation is not about waiting for magical solutions, but about mastering the fundamentals and applying them with creativity and relentless effort. Their legacy challenges us to look at our own obstacles not as impossibilities, but as puzzles waiting for a human solution. Their roads did not simply cross the land, they conversed with it. Ancient surveyors possessed a masterful understanding of environmental adaptation, designing infrastructure that worked in concert with natural forces rather than against them. This was not a vague ideal, but a practical necessity for survival and longevity. A road's path was chosen not only for directness but for resilience, carefully routed to avoid unstable floodplains or areas prone to landslides. They read the landscape like a book, understanding that a ridgeline offered a dry, stable path, while a valley floor, though seemingly easier, could become a river of mud with the first heavy rain. This same principle applied to water management on a grand scale. Aqueducts are the ultimate example of leveraging gravity, their entire existence predicated on a surveyor's ability to map a continuous, gentle downhill slope from a mountain spring to a distant city. But their environmental genius extended far beyond these monumental structures. In the arid landscapes of Persia, engineers developed the canal, a breathtaking feat of sustainable surveying. These were underground tunnels that tapped into water trapped deep within alluvial fans at the base of mountains. To construct one, surveyors first located a water source high in the foothills. Then, with an incredible grasp of hydrology and gradient, they would plot a tunnel that sloped ever so slightly downward, just enough for the water to flow freely. A series of vertical shafts were dug along the tunnel's route, serving both as access points for excavation and as vents for the cool, moist air within. By keeping the water channel underground, the canal system virtually eliminated loss from evaporation in the blistering desert sun, providing a reliable, clean water supply for drinking and irrigation for centuries. This was infrastructure that actively preserved its most precious resource. This environmentally sensitive approach created a legacy of remarkable sustainability. The terraced farms of the Incas, for instance, were more than just fields on a mountainside. Their carefully surveyed and constructed stone walls reduced soil erosion, captured rainwater, and created microclimates that could support a variety of crops at different altitudes. The surveyors who laid them out were not just measuring land, they were designing entire ecosystems. This ancient wisdom, born from a deep and necessary observation of the interconnectedness of all systems, offers a powerful blueprint for our own era. In a time of climate challenges, their work reminds us that the most resilient engineering is not about dominating nature, but about learning to build with its rhythms, creating structures that endure because they belong. Precision was a matter of state security. The straight roads and carefully measured fields we admire today were not born from abstract curiosity, but from the hard demands of power and wealth. An empire could not be managed without knowing exactly what it owned, who lived where, and how quickly its legions could march to a distant frontier. At the heart of this system was land, the ultimate source of riches in the ancient world. A farmer's plot, meticulously measured by a surveyor, determined his tax obligation. Inaccuracies here were not minor errors. They translated directly into lost revenue for the state or unfair burdens on its citizens. This drove the need for standardized units and reliable methods, turning the surveyor into a key agent of the treasury. His meticulous work ensured that the economic engine of the empire, its agriculture, could be efficiently and predictably harnessed. The same logic applied to the sprawling network of roads. A perfectly straight, well-drained highway was a military asset. It allowed armies to move at speeds that could crush rebellions and respond to invasions before they escalated. These roads also carried the lifeblood of commerce, enabling goods to flow safely and predictably across continents, which in turn generated more wealth that could be taxed. The Roman Empire's massive investment in its surveyors, the agrimensors, was a strategic decision. These professionals were dispatched to newly conquered territories to divide the land into a grid of square plots for veteran soldiers, a process called centuriation. This was not just a reward system, it was a powerful tool of control. It imposed a Roman order on the landscape, displaced local populations, and created a network of loyal communities tied directly to Rome's economic and military system. The surveyor's tools were, in effect, instruments of policy. In this context, a misplaced angle or a miscalculated distance was more than a technical fault. It was a potential weakness in the empire's armor. This constant pressure from the highest levels of government and military command provided a powerful, relentless incentive for innovation. The demand for ever greater accuracy in mapping territories, calculating volumes for grain stores, and setting the foundations for new cities pushed the development of more refined tools like the Dioptra and more sophisticated geometric techniques. The legacy of ancient infrastructure, therefore, is as much a story of political ambition and economic necessity as it is of engineering genius. It reminds us that the drive to measure our world with greater care has always been fueled by the fundamental human pursuits of governance, security, and prosperity. Metal dictated the precision of the ancient world. The surveyor's brilliant geometric mind was useless if his tools warped in the sun or wore down after a single season. This is where the unsung craft of the toolmaker became essential, a quiet revolution in material science that empowered every measurement. Craftsmen did not simply use whatever was at hand. They made deliberate choices based on a deep, practical understanding of how materials behaved under stress. For the critical pivots and rotating parts of a sophisticated dioptra, bronze was the metal of choice. It was strong, yet it could be cast and filed to a smooth, frictionless finish, allowing the sighting tube to swing freely and settle accurately. As metalworking advanced, the development of more consistent bronze alloys with precise ratios of copper and tin meant that these instruments could be manufactured with finer, more reliable components. This consistency was the hidden key to repeatable results, project after project. The frame of the same instrument, however, demanded a different quality, stability. For this, they turned to seasoned hardwoods like oak or elm. Wood that had been dried slowly and carefully was far less likely to warp or twist with changes in humidity, ensuring that the base of the instrument remained true. The choice of material even extended to the humble plumb bob. A weight made of solid lead was not just for heft, Its high density and uniform casting meant it would hang with a steady, unwavering vertical line, immune to the breezes that could disturb a lighter stone. These artisans were intuitively managing properties we now call thermal expansion and wear resistance. They knew that a metal scale graduated on a blistering hot day might read differently on a cold one, so they selected materials that minimized this effect. They understood that a constantly rotating bearing would eventually develop play, so they used durable metals and designs that could be adjusted or refurbished. This relentless focus on the quality of the tool itself created a virtuous cycle. A more stable, finely graduated dioptra allowed for more precise angle measurements. Those superior measurements, in turn, enabled the construction of longer, more ambitious aqueducts with flawless gradients. The Roman road network, with its legendary straightness, relied on the unwavering right angles produced by Gromas built from stable wood and true hanging barbs. The evolution of the tools and the grandeur of the infrastructure were two sides of the same coin, both refined through a holistic approach to engineering where every single component, from the largest stone in a bridge pier to the smallest bronze pivot in a sighting instrument, was optimized for its role in a much larger, enduring system. A surveyor's work shaped the very structure of society, and in return, society granted them a place of high esteem. These were not simply laborers with measuring rods. They were often members of the priestly or scholarly elite, their technical knowledge intertwined with sacred and administrative authority. In ancient Egypt, the role of the surveyor was deeply embedded within the temple bureaucracy. The annual flooding of the Nile erased property boundaries, and it fell to these trained specialists to re-measure the fields, an act that was both a practical necessity for tax collection and a ritual restoration of cosmic order. Their ability to calculate area and re-establish boundaries made them indispensable to the state's economy and its religious conception of a balanced world. This gave them significant influence in the planning of new cities and the allocation of vast agricultural lands, placing them at the very heart of governance. Across the Mediterranean, the Roman surveyor, the agrimensor, operated from a different but equally powerful position as a military engineer. These men were officers within the legions, enjoying the privileges and respect accorded to Rome's military class. Their expertise was a strategic asset deployed to lay out fortified camps in hostile territory, plan new colonial towns for veterans, and map the routes for the roads that would secure the conquest. A Roman general relied on his surveyors as much as he relied on his centurions, for they were the ones who transformed wild land into organized, defensible, and productive Roman territory. This elevated social status did more than just reward individuals. It actively fostered a culture of excellence. Because the profession was respected, it attracted bright, ambitious minds. It created a career path where innovation and precision were valued, and where knowledge was considered a treasure to be protected and carefully passed down. In both Egypt and Rome, this transmission of skill happened within structured institutions, whether temple schools or military apprenticeships, ensuring that hard-won techniques for aligning with the stars or calculating volumes of Earth were not lost, but instead refined across generations. The high standing of the surveyor was a clear reflection of how much their civilization depended on them. They were the guardians of measurement, and in a world being built from the ground up, that made them architects of stability and growth. This universal drive for precision was expressed in strikingly different ways across the ancient world. Each civilization, shaped by its own landscape and purpose, developed a unique surveying fingerprint. In the flat, sun-drenched expanse of Egypt, the surveyor's art was inseparable from the heavens. Their primary concern was aligning monumental religious structures like pyramids and temples with the cardinal directions and specific stars. This was not merely an engineering feat, it was a sacred duty, a way of ensuring the pharaoh's soul could ascend to join the eternal gods. The Great Pyramid's near-perfect orientation to true north stands as a timeless testament to this celestial obsession, achieved with simple tools like the gnomon and an unwavering focus on the sky. Meanwhile, on the Italian peninsula, the Roman approach was relentlessly terrestrial. Their empire ran on logistics, and their surveyors were the engineers of that system. Their genius lay in applying practical geometry to dominate the landscape itself, using the Groma to lay out perfect right angles and the Corobates to trace gentle slopes. They created the straight roads and enduring aqueducts that became the arteries of their power. For Rome, precision was a tool for control, taxation, and military speed, etched directly into the earth. Far across the ocean, in the breathtaking peaks of the Andes, the Inca faced a completely different challenge. Their terrain was a vertical world of mountains and deep valleys, where straight lines were often impossible. Their surveying solutions were as adaptable as their environment. They used carefully leveled terraces to create farmland on impossibly steep slopes, and their road system incorporated stone stairways and suspension bridges to navigate the brutal topography. Perhaps most fascinating is their use of the quipu, a complex system of knotted cords. While their exact use is still debated by scholars, evidence strongly suggests these intricate textiles were used to record numerical data, possibly including measurements, census information, and logistical plans for their vast empire. The quipu represents a brilliant, non-written solution to the universal problem of recording and transmitting vital information. So what connects the Egyptian stargazer, the Roman road builder, and the Inca knot keeper? They all mastered the art of achieving complex, society-shaping results with remarkably simple tools. Whether it was a shadow cast by a stick, a water-filled trough, or a series of knots in a cord, each culture leveraged the fundamental principles of observation and geometry. They prove that engineering excellence is not a single path, but a multitude of creative responses to the shared human need to measure, plan, and build a world that endures. Precision was a state of mind long before it was a measurement. The ancient surveyor's greatest tool was an intangible one, a cultivated psychology of profound patience and relentless focus. Imagine the mental fortitude required to trace a straight line for 50 miles, knowing that a single moment of distraction could compound into a costly error visible for centuries. These individuals were not just technicians, they were masters of spatial reasoning, capable of visualizing an entire aqueduct's path or a city grid in their mind's eye before a single trench was dug. This internal mapping allowed them to anticipate problems, to foresee where a slope might falter or where two tunnels might fail to meet. Their work was a continuous exercise in mental discipline, a slow, iterative dance of measurement, adjustment, and verification. Under the blazing sun or in bitter cold, they repeated their observations, trusting the process and their own honed judgment. This was not a job for the impatient. The very act of carefully placing markers, checking them against celestial guides, and then checking them again, fostered a powerful resilience. Every corrected mistake was a lesson learned, every successful project a reinforcement of their method. We can see this mindset etched into the artifacts they left behind. A bronze scale graduated with lines finer than a human hair is not just a tool, it is a physical manifestation of a commitment to excellence. Meticulous project records on clay tablets, detailing daily progress and material calculations, reveal a systematic mind that valued order and accountability. This psychological dimension reminds us that the pyramids and roads we marvel at were built by human beings who chose to care deeply about getting it right. Their legacy is a testament to the power of a focused mind, a reminder that true innovation is fueled not just by brilliant ideas, but by the quiet, unwavering determination to see them through to perfection. This human capacity for deep focus and meticulous care is the unbroken thread connecting the ancient surveyor to the modern engineer and the visionary artist of today. Their legacy is not locked in the past but lives in the lines of every modern map and the foundations of our greatest structures. We have journeyed from the sighting poles of the Nile to the celestial charts of Teotihuacan, uncovering a universal truth about human ingenuity. These master builders achieved the extraordinary not with magic, but with method, proving that profound accuracy springs from patient observation and a deep respect for natural laws. They saw the world as a system of solvable puzzles, using the sun, the stars, and the simple logic of geometry to impose order on chaos. Their work stands as a timeless lesson in resourcefulness, showing us that the most powerful tools are often a keen eye, a focused mind, and the wisdom to work with the environment rather than against it. As we design our own future, building smarter cities and more resilient infrastructure, their holistic approach offers a powerful blueprint, one where technical skill is guided by cultural and environmental awareness. The next time you walk a straight path or cross a sturdy bridge, take a moment to consider the ancient hands that first mastered these arts. Their stories of precision are etched into the world around us, waiting only for a curious eye to discover them. We would love to hear which ancient marvel amazes you the most, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration, liking the video and subscribing helps bring more stories of hidden history to light. Thank you for watching.